What's going on, everybody? We're just getting here now to the theater to watch Shazam. Are you excited, babe?
Yes.
Yes, Fandango early screening that I saw on their website earlier this week. Did not know this was happening, but I'm very happy. And yeah, let's see how this is.
What's going on, guys? Just got back home, so let's talk about Shazam. So right out of the gate, I'll go ahead and say that I really enjoyed this film. I had a lot of fun with it. I think it's a very funny movie, very self-aware. It plays with a lot of superhero tropes. And yeah, I think that the best thing that I can say about this film is that it is very self-aware. It knows what kind of movie it is. It does not take itself too seriously and feels very different compared to a lot of other DC films. I think I can easily say it's the most lighthearted, fun, and just completely just wanting you to have a fun adventure kind of DC film. And I think that's definitely a great thing for DC to have in their slate now. And it seems that with Aquaman and now this, it seems like that's more the direction that they're headed now, rather than the more dark and brooding tone that they had in some of their earlier films in the DCEU. And even outside of the DCEU, I think that this is easily the most lighthearted and fun DC film in terms of just the kind of tone that it has. I definitely don't think this is one of the best DC films. I would say it's definitely up there in the upper echelon of better DC films. But I think a lot of the other films, like I would say Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman are a lot better for me personally than this movie was. But I personally really enjoyed the take of Shazam and this character and this world and its inclusion to this whole world of comic book movies that we have these days. So before I get too far into the review, I'll just go ahead and give a quick synopsis of the film without any spoilers, really, like I usually don't, if you have no idea what the character of Shazam and this whole world is about. So the basic premise of this film is you have the character of Billy Batson, who's a foster child and has been running from different foster homes his entire life. He ends up in this new home with a group of different kids, ends up becoming close friends with one of the kids that he bunks with, and essentially he's taken into a different world by a wizard who gives him powers, and now he is Shazam. Without getting too deep into any of the spoilers, that's the basic idea. Now he's got superpowers and he looks like a grown adult every time he says the word Shazam. He can switch back and forth between being a kid and this grown adult looking character, and I think that's where a lot of the humor definitely resides in this film. They definitely lean into this very adolescent, childish, yet silly and fun and easily accessible kind of humor of having this 14-year-old become this 30-something-year-old looking superhero. So I won't get too much deeper into any of the spoilers per se after that, but that's just basically the idea. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start off with my negatives because I have a couple and they're not too big, but I just wanted to get those out of the way nice and early. My biggest gripes that I had with this movie were that some elements of the film definitely felt rushed. And specifically in the first act for me, it felt like they were trying to get things going, and sometimes it could feel a little slow. Not slow to the point of boredom, but just a little bit slow as far as the pickup and the narrative just kind of building to what the story would actually end up being in the film. And I feel like specifically the villain's motivations are set up throughout the first act a little bit rushed, and it's just kind of your typical mustache twirling bad guy. He's not super memorable in the grand scheme of comic book villains, and I think that that's kind of what they were going for sure. Like, there's definitely this element of he's just the bad guy, like just the bad guy in the story. You don't really need to know too much more about him, that he's just the bad guy, and the story really does center on Shazam, Billy Batson, and the kids around him, and that's really where the story's strengths reside. But yeah, like the villain for me just kind of felt a little bit forgettable. I enjoyed the portrayal. I enjoyed his role in the film. I enjoyed a lot of the action that he was involved in for sure. So there was definitely no huge gripes there. It just felt like in the first act they kind of set up his motivations kind of quickly, and it's just like, oh, here's the bad guy, here's why he's a bad guy, and there you go, that's your bad guy. Outside of that, the only other elements that I felt were a little bit of a negative for me were the rushed elements throughout the film, in the sense that you have characters that really didn't spend too much screen time together, but now, because the story kind of needs it to happen this way, they're a lot closer than you would think they would be, or it just doesn't feel like some of the emotional moments between characters or camaraderie was really well deserved based on the story structure up to that point. It felt like there was definitely certain characters that weren't really super involved in what was happening, but by the end of the film, they're a lot more integrated in what's happening, and they care more for other characters than you thought they did, or that you even knew that they would, because the story really didn't build them up to really have any sort of developed chemistry or connection with these other characters, if that makes sense. So those two things would be my biggest negatives, really. Outside of that, there was a few jokes and some humor that doesn't work for me, that was a little slapsticky, and I like slapstick humor for sure, but some things that maybe took me out of it a little bit too much, like they were trying to do too many jokes. I had a similar kind of feel when I watched like Deadpool 2 or Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Those are two other comic book movies that I really did enjoy for sure, 110%, but you know, they can get a little too jokey sometimes, and sometimes you're trying to laugh at the last joke, but then there's another joke and you're not really able to catch up with the jokes. And that's kind of something that this film did for me here and there, but not too much. Just if I had to throw in some negatives just to balance this review out, those three things, those three elements, and I would say the rushed parts are kind of like one gripe. That would be like the only negatives that I really have. I really enjoyed Zachary Levi in the role. Honestly, I think he definitely leaned into what this character needed and what this character was. They took the character from the pages and from the animated shows and animated movies, and they brought him in a new way to screen. There's definitely a new vibe to him in this film, but it definitely keeps true to the humor and the charm of the character, while also bringing it to screen in a new and vibrant way. Also, I really enjoyed the action in this movie. The special effects are really good. You know, you can kind of always expect that with these kind of movies nowadays. There are a few moments, specifically when he's flying, where things feel a little cartoonish looking, but I think that's kind of inevitable. And again, I think, like I mentioned before, one of my biggest strengths that I think this movie has is that it is very self-aware, and it's not trying to be some over-the-top, like super serious or brooding kind of film. And so when the colors are very vibrant and certain things do look a little bit cartoony, I do feel like the movie leans into that kind of thing and is trying to be. And so, you know, I can't really fault it for doing that, because it was very much in tone of the kind of movie that it is. So yeah, guys, I don't really have too much more to say about this movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a solid watch. I think it's definitely not upper echelon of comic book movies, but definitely a solid, fun watch that's definitely up there with a good solo superhero film. And I highly recommend it to anybody who's a fan of comic book movies and just a fan of action movies, or just wants to go see a comedy. I think it plays well as all those different things. I thoroughly enjoyed watching Zachary Levi in this role, and I'm excited for whatever that comes next. There are 2 post-credit scenes. If you guys want to, stick around for those, for sure, definitely do that. I definitely enjoyed the end of this movie too. There's the last scene of this movie definitely gave me a nice smirk. I think it'll give a nice smirk to most people who watch this movie. Everybody in my theater in the very end had a big laugh at the very last moment before the credits roll. So I think most other people will feel the exact same way. So yeah, guys, I don't have too much more to say in this review. I think it's a solid movie. It's definitely not upper echelon or top tier comic book movie, but I definitely think it's up there as far as just being a solid solo superhero film that you can watch, and it plays well as a comedy. It's got some good action. It's got some great special effects, and it's also got a lot of heart and charm. You know, it's a very charming film with some really great characters that do really have some great chemistry. There are characters, like I mentioned, that feel a little rushed, and their motivations kind of just feel a little rushed. But outside of that, those are kind of just nitpicky things. Nothing ever really took me out of the film. Everything made sense. There were some things that they kind of just wanted you to buy into a little bit more, and I think that leans more into what I was saying earlier about characters kind of just having connections that didn't feel earned. But yeah, if those are the worst things I can say about this movie, guys, I think you will all have a really great time with it. I think that it's just DC showing us a different side. I think it's definitely something that's different from DC, and the humor, the charm, and everything about it makes me wonder where they're going to be going with the rest of their films in the future. And I am excited to see this character return in more films. So yeah, guys, that's going to be our review of Shazam. Make sure you guys hit that like button. If you got to see an early screening as well, leave me your comments down below. Let me know what you thought about it. And if you haven't seen it yet and you're looking forward to seeing it, let me know what it is that you're looking forward to seeing in the movie. What are you excited about? What are you expecting from the film? Of course, I will not spoil anything in any responses in the comments, so you do not have to worry about that. And yeah, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure, like I said, hit that like button, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye!